Mindfulness in the workplace has a lot of benefits. As you mentioned, it reduces stress, improves focus, and enhances decision making, but it also reduces emotional exhaustion. Now, there are a number of studies on this that suggest emotional exhaustion actually reduces productivity and increases the dissatisfaction in people's jobs.
You know, if someone says something that's triggering, it can be easy to kind of put the wall up and start to go into defensive mode and start to try and show all the reasons why they're not right. It actually helps you, and we practice this in role plays, we know the value of asking questions, but curiosity in asking questions actually also gives yourself a moment to take the pressure off you of answering and kind of puts it back on them, which is a really nice way to center yourself as well. So
in my first year, if you don't remember me working here, you guys were
I do.
you guys made fun of me for not crying. And I was like, what do you mean? This is a workplace. And I so clearly remember that because I wasn't practicing mindfulness to the level that I am now.
Yeah.
And I was just kept this barrier, but I let so many things build up.
Okay.
And it just wasn't healthy, and it reduced my job satisfaction. I was always emotionally exhausted after work. I potatoed so hard. How to remain mindful and present in a fast-paced digital marketing agency.
Welcome to the Marketing Mentors podcast brought to you by Red Pandas Digital. I'm Linda, and today I'm joined by my colleague and good friend, Elena. Welcome.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on. Tasha is off living her best life for her 30th birthday week. So we've got Elena on the podcast, and when we were talking about what to talk about today, we came up with kind of sharing a little bit about mindfulness and how we integrate that into our daily lives here at Red Pandas. And it makes so much sense having you on this podcast, Elena, because I feel like we've got some of the most mindful people on this podcast today from Red Pandas talking about this. I feel like you're the right person for this podcast.
Definitely. I'm really excited to be here. And to be talking about integrating mindfulness practices into daily life, both in work and in personal life as well.
Yeah.
I feel like this is our first podcast together, is it not?
No way, really?
Yeah, I've done a lot with Tasha, but I don't think I've done any with you.
True. All right. Exciting for us.
I know. It's a good topic to start on.
It is. I know. I agree. I'm really excited to talk about this. Now, when we talk about mindfulness, I thought it would be good to just have a definition out there. So when we talk about mindfulness, we're talking about practices like meditation, deep breathing, and mindful movement. And the fact that these all have a variety of benefits in the workplace for being able to do things like reduce stress, enhance focus, and improve just your overall well-being, which of course has a knock-on effect in your workplace. But Elena, do you want to take us through what we're going to start with when we talk mindfulness?
I think let's start with a definition. I feel like that's a really good place to start. Now, I'm going to use the definition from Headspace. It's actually the app I use for my meditation practice. So they define mindfulness as the quality of being present and fully engaged with whatever you're doing at the moment, free from distraction or judgment, and aware of your thoughts and feelings without being caught up in them. So essentially, being present is the main core factor, right?
Yeah.
So not being caught up what happened in the past or in what's going to happen in the future, but just being present in the moment of what's happening now, whether that's a task or a conversation you're having, just being here, really.
Being able to center yourself again.
Yeah, definitely. And life in an agency can get really chaotic.
Yeah.
So having
with back-to-back meetings, different energies, dealing with your own emotions as a woman. Yeah.
Definitely. You have a whole team that you're working with and everyone's going through their own emotions. You probably have your own stuff in your personal life. I have my own stuff. So being able to bring it all back in, leave that at the door and just being in yourself and working to your strength is really, really crucial when it comes to mindfulness.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I was actually I was having a conversation with Moby, our CEO here at Red Pandas, and I'm going so off topic for a moment. He was talking about like masculine and feminine energy.
He loves doing that.
Yeah, right? And like him trying to tap into his feminine energy and how we're so lucky because we obviously have a lot of that feminine energy in the team. But I feel like there's so many good things we can tap into. Like I feel like with feminine energy, we want to tap into that mindfulness and we want to ground ourselves that way. So although like that feminine energy comes with a lot of like emotion and hormones and all of that, I feel like it also allows us to tap into mindfulness a little bit easier than what like that masculine energy does.
Definitely. I think the ego really stands in the way for men especially to tap into mindfulness. Like I know my partner has a very hard time with like meditation and mindfulness practices.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot easier for me to do that. And that's not just with my partner, like a lot of male friends that I have.
Yeah.
They have a lot of trouble because they're like, oh, I'm a man. Like I don't need mindfulness.
Yeah, it's almost associated with that femininity, which isn't such a bad thing. You know, it's good to tap into it. But yeah, anyway, okay, let's keep going.
So the next thing that I wanted to mention is before we dive into practical tips and integrating mindfulness, just some of the benefits. I know that you touched on it a little earlier when we started this, but mindfulness in the workplace has a lot of benefits. Yes, as you mentioned, it reduces stress, improves focus, and enhances decision-making, but it also reduces emotional exhaustion. Now, there are a number of studies on this that suggest emotional exhaustion actually reduces productivity and increases the dissatisfaction in people's jobs.
Okay, that makes sense.
It really benefits employees and leaders to have a mindfulness practice because you don't want to be emotionally exhausted from your work. Like you don't want to like be a couch potato after your work day or your work week because you're building this community within the workplace.
Yeah.
That you do want to be emotionally present, but also have that work-life balance of being emotionally and mindfully present outside of work.
I feel like this one is really speaking to me. I feel like the number one reason why I have to practice mindfulness is because of my emotions. Like I'm quite an emotional person. I don't look it because I think I practice that mindfulness. I'm really conscious of it, but like deep down, I really like carry the emotions from all the client meetings that I have from like one to the other. So I think if I didn't practice it, Elena, like I would be experiencing, and I get it, like the emotional exhaustion that you mentioned, 100%. I would be feeling that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, in my first year, if you don't remember me working here, you guys were
like,
I do. you guys made fun of me for not crying. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is a workplace. And I so clearly remember that because I wasn't practicing mindfulness to the level that I am now.
Yeah.
And like, I was just like, kept this barrier, but I let so many things like build up.
Okay.
And like, it just wasn't healthy and like it reduced my job satisfaction. I was always emotionally exhausted after work. Like I potatoed so hard in that first year because I wasn't expressing it. Yeah. And also I wasn't practicing mindfulness in the right ways.
Yeah. It's interesting and it kind of touches into that masculine stuff we were talking about, but like in a way, and I feel like I've been there as well. Like I've been on that journey where I don't want to show any of the stresses get to me and I don't let it out to anyone that I'm working with anyway, because I would perceive that as being like stronger or more of a leader or have that masculine energy. But then like it really helps when you're able to be able to vent to your colleagues and talk and like tap into some of this stuff and just almost be vulnerable with it and let the wall down and say, you know what, I'm human. I need to work on ways to be able to like work with my body, the emotions that I'm feeling.
Definitely.
And I think it makes you a better leader, a better human, like a better person for doing that.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I definitely needed to let go of some of that like masculinity, being like, I have to be tough.
Yeah.
And just like suck it up and be able to vent to my colleagues.
Yeah.
And
know it doesn't make you weaker or any worse off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get into the nitty gritty. I want to share some practical tips for integrating mindfulness. Now, I read this Harvard review research that suggests that if you're a leader, like both of us are in the company, there are 3 main areas of mastery that allow leaders to be more present, thoughtful in their choices, and more aware of everything around them.
Okay.
And the first of the 3 areas is metacognition. Now, do you want to tell us what metacognition is, Linda?
Yeah. So when we're talking about metacognition, it's the ability to take a step back to observe at a distance what's happening around you. And by doing so, you become more aware of your own reactions to situations. And Elena, I know we were talking about this earlier, like we were saying Moby does this really well.
He really does. Like I remember like in my first couple of years, I got so invested in like client situations.
Yeah.
And he would be so calm. He's like, with time, you'll learn and understand that not to take it personally and just like have a bird's eye view of it. And I didn't really understand what that really meant at first. And then when I started to practice mindfulness more and create a work-life balance rather than being all work and no life, I started to understand like, it's not personal. It's just business and things happen. And a lot of the time when situations come up or questions come up that you weren't ready to answer or like there is any kind of disagreement or misunderstanding, it's not personal.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And the core thing is to allow the situation, have that bird's eye view. Like this is not just on me, but be curious to find like a way forward together.
Yeah. I think like when you let your emotions to control you and you're not able to step away, then that means that you become too attached to the outcome. And Moby always says this thing, which is be unattached from the outcome. So care, but don't care too much, essentially, which is what my partner actually says. So there's like different variations to say the same thing, right?
Yeah,
but be unattached to the outcome. And that's just not living in the future as soon as something bad happens. Like, let's say you get a code red email come from a client and it doesn't look too good. Like not having very good metacognition is you going straight to the future and thinking about worst case scenario and not actually being in the present moment and thinking about what you know currently. You're just kind of being guided by these thoughts that are just like running over your brain, essentially. Like they're overrunning everything inside you. And there's so many frameworks out there to be able to work on that. A colleague of ours actually shared a really good framework that I want to share with you guys from Mo Gadat. And there's a few steps involved. So number 1 is let it out. So think of a moment when maybe you're not displaying the most amount of, great metacognition, if you will. And in that moment, let it out. So like Elena said, like if you have a colleague, if you have a friend, it's important to let those emotions out and vent and talk about something. Because as Elena knows, if you bottle it up, that's not so healthy and it doesn't serve you long term. So let it out. Once you do that, look at the facts. So think about, okay, like what do we know up until this point? For example, if a client is saying to you like, we don't have enough leads, like it's really bad, we're going to go out of business, like let them vent, but then give them a moment to then go to the facts. Okay, ask them questions. How many leads did we get this month? How many leads did we get per day? Where did those leads come from? How many do we need to be able to convert into a customer? Like actually go into the facts and talk objectively rather than subjectively, I think is the main thing there. Once you have the facts, you can then go into a solution mode because you're then building solutions off like real data. So that's really about like, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, rather than emotions.
Exactly.
It's based off facts.
Yeah. And this, to be honest, this can be quite hard because I know like when I'm venting, like let's say if I do it to Moby, like Moby goes straight into solutions mode. And it's so helpful and puts my energy in the right direction, but it can be hard to want to talk solutions when you're still in the like let it out phase.
Definitely.
But you have to go through the process at some point. Like the let it out has to stop, and then you have to actually move on and go through the facts, talk through the solution. And then after that, he talks about measures. So like what measures can you put in place to make sure you keep yourself accountable to the solution?
Yeah. So the solutions is like a plan of next steps. Like how are you going to implement this? And then the measures is essentially how are you going to keep yourself accountable to actually do the things?
Yeah.
Like, is that checking in with someone?
How often, when?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that framework. I thought it was really helpful, and I feel like we do a bit of that, but maybe for me anyway, it's like subconsciously, like I didn't have a framework there, but it's just so helpful.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I definitely miss the step of the facts. I definitely can get on the like let it out for too long as well. But the facts really are there to center you.
So true. It's actually so important when you think about it, that step.
Yeah, it is the most crucial step because if you're going straight from let it out to solutions mode,
could be the wrong solution for the wrong problem.
Exactly, because you're not stating the facts yet and you're not rooting yourself.
Yeah.
You're caught up in this. I'm going to reference Jay Shetty in here. He has this book called Think Like a Monk, and it's called The Monkey Mind. He talks about like the monk mind and the monkey mind, but I love how he explains these like let it out feelings that we have and these thoughts that we get caught up in, because thoughts are just thoughts. Like they're not real facts and we get so caught up in them, and that's the let it go part that we need to go through.
Yeah.
But the monkey brain really doesn't want to let go. So the facts really root you down and make you present in the moment and mindful about like let go of. If we just remove all the emotion, put that to the side, what are we left with?
Yeah.
And then start taking next steps with that.
It's a good kind of description as to like what it actually does. You're right. Like strip back the emotion and then you're just left with the facts, which is what we want to work with.
Yeah, definitely. Well, besides metacognition, there were two other areas, which is allowing and curiosity. And I feel like we touched on these as we went through metacognition anyway, but allowing essentially is being open to what is happening without judgment of yourself or anyone else.
Yeah.
And then curiosity is just being curious, essentially being open to learning more about the situation, more about why you're being triggered by something, why you feel all these heightened emotions.
Yeah. Good for when you're being defensive, when you're about to be defensive, maybe. You know, if someone says something that's triggering, it can be easy to kind of put the wall up and start to go into defensive mode and start to try and show all the reasons why they're not right. But it actually helps you, like, and we practice this in role plays, like we know the value of asking questions, but curiosity in asking questions actually also gives yourself a moment to take the pressure off you of answering and kind of puts it back on them, which is a really nice way to center yourself as well. So like if you're being asked a question you don't know the answer to, it's amazing to just ask them back an open-ended question where they have to spend time describing. So that way it gives you a moment to like center yourself and come up with what you need to say.
It gives you time to center yourself, but it also gives you extra information in asking that question, because your initial reaction might have been to the wrong thing.
So true.
And the intentions behind that might have been completely different than what they are now that you have that extra piece of information.
Yeah, you're right, Elena.
So, Linda, how do we make sure that we have mastery within leadership, within employees of mindfulness?
Yeah, so there's a few ways that we can do this. Elena and I are probably going to just touch on two, but there's so many. I'd say a big one is just developing self-awareness. So trying to think about how you show up in a work setting, and there are ways that you can do this if you're not entirely certain. Like we do role plays, so that is incredibly helpful in us being able to like gauge our body, our reaction to things, body language, like verbal cues, things like that. But being able to be aware of yourself and focusing on that is really, really important here. I think you have to have self-awareness to be a really good leader.
Self-reflection.
Yeah. And to be honest, a really great way to work on that skill is to actually ask the people that you work with what they think, like get them to also reflect for you.
Definitely.
So if you're struggling with the self-reflection, actually asking them, like, is there anything that I could improve on, or did you notice anything in this call? Could I have run it any better? If you can't like figure it out on your own.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely had to do that. Like I knew something didn't go well in like one of my calls or a couple, and I was like, I've reflected on it. I've watched the call again, and I'm just not sure how I could have practiced some more mindfulness there.
Yeah.
And like I know the steps that I missed, but what is the self-awareness about myself that I need to develop to be able to change essentially and do better in the next conversation that I have.
One thing that I do that I find works for me, because I said earlier, like I carry the cognitive, like emotional load from meetings. And if I don't have a space between meetings, then I carry that into the next one. And I find that I get further away from being mindful and actually go into that emotional exhaustion that you spoke about, Elena. But I try and like have buffers between every meeting. Like it'll be so rare that I have back-to-backs. Like I'll at least just allow 15 minutes and I can just move away from the laptop, go for a walk, like go fill up my water bottle, actually just get away from the screen. Because I find for me personally, like if I'm staring into a screen for long periods of time, I get so like invested in what I'm doing and stressed and I'm forgetting about the world around me. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that I struggle with.
Like tunnel vision.
It is, yeah. I get this tunnel vision and then I allow things to kind of build up onto each other because I'm so like I'm not looking at my surroundings. I'm just looking at the laptop. So for me, I find that I actually like have to remind myself to move away from the laptop in those like 15-minute buffers that I have and actually take in the world, like breathe in the fresh air, look at the sun outside. Like I have to do things like that. Otherwise I struggle with mindfulness, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, once you're aware, the biggest other thing besides developing the self-awareness is having a plan. Obviously, like we mentioned before, you can't actually change things unless you focus on the facts and the solutions. And the easiest way to start that is probably just doing a 5-minute breathing exercise. So using that 15-minute break after a meeting, whether that's going for a walk or and breathing in the fresh air, or just at home, like getting up and like walking. I think there was some studies that suggest like walking at least 6 feet, which is 6 meters away from where you were sitting at the moment, because you need to change your surroundings and where you are, because you like we mentioned with you have such tunnel vision that like even though you like step away from the computer, if you're in the same room, your mind is still on the computer.
So true.
So you need to walk away at least 6 meters. First of all, you'll start moving your body. And second of all, just breathing. You're starting to focus more on the breathing and the movement, and you're in a different space at that point as well.
There's a really good breathing exercise that I've done in the past, and I can't remember how many seconds it is, but it's amazing for if you're like stuck and you can't get back and center yourself, where you breathe in for like 6 seconds, hold for 6 seconds, and then breathe out. I think it's like 6 seconds or 5 or something like that.
Yes, it's 6 in, 6 hold, 6 out.
And then you repeat it 4 times or something.
Yes.
Yeah. I've found that that's really helpful.
Yeah, when I have like really bad anxiety or like I feel like a panic attack coming on, that is all I do, like that exercise there. And the first time you might not get to 6 seconds.
Maybe on my fitness level, then no.
Maybe on the in, And the hold you will, but on the out, I feel like that's the hardest part because like slowing it down to make it last 6 seconds is a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah. But the amazing thing is it gets you focused on the breathing as opposed to what you were focused on.
Yeah. And it really slows your heart rate down.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that that's been really helpful. What about you, Elena? What do you do?
I do a couple of things. I try to make sure that in the mornings, before even anything starts, I call it my me mornings.
Yeah.
It's my calm before the storm, because I know the work day is going to be busy. Like some days are obviously busier than others. But my calm before the storm is usually either going for a walk, doing some yoga, or doing some exercise. And how I choose what I'm doing is based on what I know I have on for the day. So like if I have a lot of meetings and I need to show up and be present and like run those meetings, like be the leader in those meetings, I'll probably, to be honest, work out, because that like gets the heart pumping, like it's just the adrenaline that comes from working out.
Yeah.
If I have just like a production heavy day where I'm like in meetings some of the day, but like have a lot of work to get through, and I know that there are just like a lot of reviews and a lot of tasks, it's probably meditation meditation and yoga that I choose, because that still warms up your body, but you're doing it really slowly. So you're not like over activating your heart like you would for when you're running things, right?
Yeah.
So just slowing that down. And then if I have like a more breezier day, I'll go for a walk just like to get some air. I know I'm going to be sitting on a computer like the whole day, just moving my body and like getting some outside time. Yeah. That's really key for me. So
I like
those
the
are
structure to your morning. I might take that, to be honest. I find that mindfulness like practices is the first thing to go when the rest of my morning routine is thrown out. So like I'll try and focus on the gym. And if I'm going to the gym, I know like I'm getting up early, I can go to the gym, I can practice mindfulness after it. But if I don't go to the gym, then there's not like a set time, and I'm like, oh, I might get a coffee first and then I'll journal and maybe I'll do it together. And there's no like routine. So it's the first thing that drops off. So I like that structure, and like even just thinking about the next day and planning that out, just knowing what's coming up, so that way I can always try and factor that in the morning. I'll always journal, but I do want to try and meditate more in the morning, because I do it at night. But I feel like morning meditation, like you say, is really helpful.
Yeah, I need to get back to my morning meditations. I feel like I miss it. But yeah, having the 3, I always know that every morning, no matter what, I'm getting up at the same time and I'm doing one of the 3. So that's probably my key thing. Like for me, I need to be consistent, because I know, like you said, if I don't consistently wake up at the same time and do one of the 3, I'm just going to like the rest of my morning kind of falls apart.
Throws you out.
Yeah.
I think that kind of, we went into the last segment without like actually going into it, which was kind of nice, but just like, you know, overcoming some of the challenges when it comes to mindfulness. Of course, like for me, definitely like the finding time and space for practice in the morning is the one that I struggle with the most. I feel like throughout the day, like I have things in place that help me center myself and be focused on the present moment. But is there anything, Elena, that you want to add to that?
I think I'm going to steal your 15 minutes after each meeting, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like my biggest challenge and what I want to work on is mindfulness after work, because I don't have anything in place at the moment that like kind of centers me after work. Like after work's done, like sometimes I see my friends. It's like very erratic of like what I do. So like maybe what I will start doing is putting my meditation practice after the work day, because I have a pretty good morning routine now. Yeah. I feel like messing with it and adding more things might overwhelm me before work.
Gotta do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before I start.
Yeah, literally. So maybe I'll start adding meditation after work, because that will like create a full circle, really. Like that's before, during, and then after.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Elena, is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I think we
fun.
covered everything.
I feel like I had a therapy session.
Yeah, literally. That's it from me. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think it was just, it was a lot of fun having you on the podcast, Elena. I love talking about these sort of things. You always have so much insight when it comes to just grounding yourself, being mindful. So I love having these conversations with you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me, Linda.
No worries. Thanks, guys.